Today's very special episode of Liberty Lockdown with Adam Curry is brought to you by our friends over at the Daily Job Hunt. If you are about to lose your job because of vaccine mandates, or if you are just trying to improve your station in life so that you can look after your family during the coming apocalypse, now's the time. Go to crash.co/daily to sign up for the Daily Job Hunt. It is a daily newsletter that hits your inbox every morning, gives you some information, inspiration, fires you up on how to go get that job of your dreams. Do not delay. Do not. There are tons of unaddressed job openings, and they are looking for you. Go to crash.co/daily to sign up for the Daily Job Hunt now. Ladies and gentlemen, today we welcome one of three men who inspired me to create this show, joining Dave Smith and Joe Rogan in the pantheon of my podcast guest sheet bucket list. He went from sexiest man on earth to sexiest pipes in podcasting. This is Liberty Lockdown, and this is the great Podfather himself, Mr. Adam Curry.
Hey, man, how you doing? It's great to be here.
Pleasure. Sorry, I have to do really over-the-top intros when I have guests that...
no, I like that. I want you to travel with me everywhere and just pre-announce me. And add the honorable. Is very nice. Nice touch there. The honorable Podfather, yes.
Indeed. So I first thought I had when I thought about having you on is, you know, you have done something that I think is pretty rare. You have impacted the culture for going on 4 decades now, maybe 5, I don't know. Have you considered that? I mean, you went from MTV VJ during the height of their powers, and then the RSS feed, and now with no agenda. It seems as if you are really leaving an indelible mark on history. Have you considered that?
Well, this is very kind of you to say. And I honestly, yes, I considered that as 2 years ago, just before the lockdown. Enough people had said, you should write a book, that I sat down and said, let me see if I can write a book. And so I started writing, and I actually realized that I've had this path that started, it really started for me when I was a kid. I built my first FM radio transmitter when I was 15. And, my mom drove me around the block, see how far my signal would reach, listening to the car radio. And I started hooking up microphones and other equipment, and the kids in the neighborhood, they were like, hey man, we're hearing your signal. I was like, okay. And so before I knew it, I had a little radio station. So I was a radio pirate, really, before I went legit, for some pretty big stations, actually, in Europe, where I grew up, in the Netherlands. What I realized is that I couldn't write this book because I hadn't really lived the last chapter. Not that I'm planning on dying anytime soon, but and that last chapter was really almost full circle for me, where we're back with podcasting 2.0, which is 18 years after we launched the original podcasting concept, Dave Weiner and I. And this time I'm leaving something behind, because I'm leaving a complete decentralized index, so that you can't be deplatformed. That index is available for any developer to create podcast apps and experiences, and we've tied into that streaming payments, which are the Lightning Network, which is Bitcoin, and so that's uninterruptible money. And so now, and this was kind of on my radar a little over a year ago when we started. I said, this thing that we put together, it was decentralized to start with, but Apple's got a lot of power in this equation. And we've got Spotify saying they're going to be the master of all things podcasting. I'm like, no, hold on a second. So we fixed that. And what has come out of that is something much bigger than even I expected, which is a distributed, or really decentralized, digital rights system, which can be the future for all kinds of content moving forward, outside of the traditional infrastructure of Silicon Valley-based companies, outside of the, if you prefer, outside of necessity for advertising, really completely independent. I think that there's very little of that left, and podcasting seems to be the literal free speech that is still possible, that cannot just be taken down by anybody. So I hope that has an impact. It is my intent to leave that part as the impact. All the other stuff is great. I love bumping into people who grew up with watching me on MTV. We grew up together. I was quite young. Right. And we witnessed and we experienced something together that you can't explain to anyone who wasn't there. Right. And it was a massively cool time. And what I enjoy, of course, is, I'm 57. So now I bump into people, it's the weirdest ones. It's always the CEO, and they don't, my hair's short now, so they don't see it. But Adam Curry is like, and it dawns on him like, wait a minute, Headbangers Ball, the tie comes off, the shirt goes open, Metallica t-shirt. And so that's always super fun, of course. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we all did back then. It was super fun. It was great. But now we're playing for keeps. It's, I'm old enough to understand what the heck is going on. And I think I'm in a position to help, and I'm doing that. And and at the same time, odd way, I'm having an incredibly good time doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that what you just described with podcasting 2.0 plus No Agenda, if I do say so myself, I really think is going to be, the final chapter to your memoir, if you will. It's like, it's impacted so many people, and I hope you feel that, in hindsight, because like for me, for instance, I've always been, an independently minded, critical thinking type person, but having been a No Agenda listener for, I don't know, 6 years or something like that now, I now come across to people as if I'm psychic. You're
from the future. Yes, I know. It's great.
It really is incredible. I mean, the way it has reprogrammed my mind and my analysis. It's not just that I am capable of identifying bullshit in the moment, but I am also capable now of identifying the steps that are coming down the path. And I'm sure that's happened to you as well. Were you like this prior to the show, or has it been the coverage of the media that kind of increased your ability in this regard?
Well, No Agenda is very special because of our background. So John C. Dvorak comes from tech journalism. He's a columnist. He's written books. He's done television. He's done radio. So he's done a plethora of media. And particularly, I think would say his expertise is much more on publishing and understanding how that world works. But we both, of course, come from media. So I come from radio and from television, and we know how it works. So we know the bullshit, all the stuff, all the how executive producers talk, and how things just happen, whether it's good or bad for the viewers. It's just that we know the business. So for me, in 2007, just before we started, my aha moment came. The internet was fast enough to be, researching stuff with any decent speed. I was living in London at the time. And I did have a company in San Francisco, and I was flying back and forth every couple of weeks. Is how I met Dvorak. But the Lisbon Treaty had finally been signed, which was going to be the constitution for the European Union. And the way it was being, and it was a funny document because first of all, it wasn't really a constitution. It was the Lisbon Treaty. No constitution word. And France rejected it, and then the Starfleet Command went, you didn't understand France. You should vote again. And then Ireland had to vote again. So it was a whole thing. It shouldn't have really happened, but it did. So that was fun to watch regardless. But then I started reading it, and this was the way it was being sold in the media was you're all going to have the same money. It's going to be great. Same money. You don't have to change your money. I was naive. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Until you realize how important it is for a country to have its own money. There's a lot of economic issues, and especially in the central banking system where that's quite handy. And so but that was not what people were being told. And the other one was you won't need a passport to go to other countries or to work in another country. And people thought this was great. And I thought it was awesome. Okay, this seems great. United States of Europe. Oh, no, it's not like that. It's going to be different. Well, it turns out it's very different because the states have sovereignty, and in Europe it's like done. They even just recently reiterated how the European Parliament has precedent over the local states, which would be the European countries. So I saw this happening. I'm like, wow, what an incredible scam. I remember specifically relevant to today. there were two items in the protocols which were never discussed. And the protocol one that caught my eye was, if you're running away from police authority, law enforcement, and they kill you, that's a legit kill. I thought that was un-European. Wow. And the other one was, if you have a communicable disease, who knew about COVID back in the day, but if you have a communicable disease, then we can pick you up and we can lock you up. And even then I thought, well, shit, it's not like we're living in the days of, mass flu or anything. I wasn't thinking that. This was 2000, whatever. Simultaneously, a book came out called Legacy of Ashes, which was written by Tim Weiner, formerly of New York Times. He wrote some other books. I don't think they were as good, but this was very good. It was about the CIA. And my uncle, Don Gregg, who was very high in CIA, he was national security advisor to Bush Sr. and a great guy. Love the guy.
Uncle Don.
Uncle Don, exactly. So I call. I said, "I'm Don. Is this true?" And he says, "Yeah, that's pretty much how I remember it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it just blew my mind. It's like, wait, none of this is being communicated. And so when John and I started talking, just because we had met, and we liked the challenge of what we knew of each other, we do a Skype call once a week or something and catch up and read what was going on in the newspapers mainly. Oh, here's what the news is saying here. And we found out these discrepancies, what U.S. news would report about Europe and vice versa. And then we decided to record it and turn it into a show. So to answer your question in a long roundabout way, I think that just because of what we do, we've always been doing it for each other. It's like, look at this bull crap that I found out. Listen to this shit. Listen to this edit. Oh my God, they pulled it out of context. What? That's not a great question. So we play 50 clips in 3 hours and we're just riffing on, and we don't know what the other guy's bringing. John has 20, 25 clips. I got 20, 25 clips. We don't know. It's a total performance between two people who just try to figure it out. And sometimes it goes better than not. We're also human beings and we get upset with each other. And I think everyone's kind of lived through all these things, but that's what I think makes it good. Also, we don't pre-discuss anything ever.
I always marvel at the fact that you guys, without having prior conversations, you gel so well together with the clips. I mean, certainly there's some duplicates and things like that, but it really is amazing. I mean, rarely is there a duplicate. You're right. Yeah. It more often than not, it flows from one to the other. And I don't even think about what John will do. I never have to think, oh, he'll have this clip. I said, maybe he will. Unless someone emails us the clip and both of us are on the email. I hate that because typically it never gets played because like, John will have it. Adam will have it. It doesn't happen. So I think that by showcasing our own deconstruction, that's really what we do. We deconstruct the media. We've taught people how to look at it. What has come out of that is exactly what you said. In particular, the last 24 months, every day, and it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be a podcaster, strangely enough. I receive 5 or maybe 10 emails from people who say, just want to let you know how important you've been during this shitty ass pandemic time, because at least I knew I wasn't crazy. It's like, no one has to agree with everything, but I knew I wasn't crazy in some of the things I was thinking. And I received a lot of those every single day. And that really, that affects me much more than anything, any kind of broadcast work I've ever done. I used to get naked pictures. I love you, panties. As you open in your intro, it was a long time ago. And so now when you get something like that, like, even people who say, we've been listening to your show and we decided we're going to homeschool our kids. I'm like, wow. It's like, don't take advice from us because we're not giving it. I said, no, but just by listening to your experience. So we've been around the world, we know stuff and we tell stories. And so that impact, is I have no words, literally. Who knew when I grew up making throwaway content, a top 40 radio, MTV, it's like, you do it, it's gone. It's not, although funny enough, you look on YouTube, a lot of it never went away. The hair always stays with me. This is no longer throwaway content. People really
it's important to them. And we have these feedback loops, we have social media to feedback in and different ways that we didn't have previously. It was literally, I used to get sacks of postcards and letters. There was no email. That was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, it's not only have you kept me sane, but because of your inspiration, I now started a show that now keeps other people sane too. So like you have a butterfly effect of sanity inducement. I mean, that's a pretty powerful thing. And I get, probably 10 a month. It's really incredible how appreciated we are, because there's so much bullshit in the media. To get any semblance of critical thought and honesty, even if I'm wrong, people understand that I'm trying to tell the truth. And I'm sure people feel the same way about your show. So it's really powerful. I wanted to bring up one thing. I think probably the only thing I disagree with you guys on, and it's probably more John than it is you, but he consistently talks about how printing money, you just print money and it's fine. Has the past, 6 months or a year with inflation starting to tick up, has that shifted either your opinion or his? I don't want you to speak for him, but it seems to me that we are starting to see evidence that there are cracks in this premise that MMT is acceptable.
Well, John, as long as I've known him, and I would say this goes back to 2000, well, I've known him much longer than that, but the 2009, 2008, 2009 crisis, he would consistently say, they're doing it wrong. They should be doing trillions and trillions of dollars right now.
Right.
And he is a student of modern monetary theory and economic theory. And he has, but he's not an Austrian economics guy by any means at all.
Right. That is our clash here.
Yeah, no, I understand. For my money, because I would say that not long after after the Lisbon Treaty and Legacy of Ashes and The Fed by Ron Paul was a beautiful little book, and so that really helped me understand how central banking operates and fractional reserve banking. The difference, and I have a very good friend, the former New York banker, and we disagree on pretty much everything. But he has been very patient in explaining to me the modern monetary theory system. And in essence, what we're in is the Japanese debt trap, because the money being printed is being printed as bank reserves. And so that's more of a treasury thing than a Fed thing. So there's technically it is, the money is immune, is what they call it. So for me, even though I see what people mean by modern monetary theory, and indeed you look at Japan, and so that's just kind of like they're flatlined. They're not going to die, but they're flatlined. The only thing they need to do is create more people, and they're not doing that, so that country is dying out. And by the way, I don't think we're doing much better with creating more people.
Yep.
For my mind, what happened to me is a couple of years ago, I really focused on Bitcoin and said, all this stuff, all these flows, the stuff that my friend the banker understands, that takes years to really have an overview of how all this crap works, and it's leveraged. And in essence, there's one thing he will agree with me on, is it's kind of maxed out. There's no real other way to go other than just massive creation of reserves. But that's a problem, because, the banks can't have that money just sitting around. It goes back overnight. I mean, it's a mess. And I don't think anyone really wants to even fathom that could break. This is a good time right now when you hear politicians talk about raising the debt limit, the debt ceiling. And you can see the ones that will never understand really how it works, because they say, well, this is crazy. It's just a formality. Of course we raise the debt limit. I mean, hello, that's the system. And it is in effect true. The system is money has to be created to keep the whole world going through the United States. That's just the system. And the politicians who don't question that, it would take them years, I think, to see the light, to say, well, no, that's not great. And here we are with $3.5 trillion. Well, really, I guess it's $5 if you take both bills together. And we're going to tax people who make over $400,000. Oh, please. Please stop insulting me with that, and then saying that, well, businesses that raise the prices because they pay more taxes, that's un-American. They'll never do that. Really? Well, that's what you do. So,
if capitalism is American, then that is very American, because if your cost inputs increase, you raise your prices. Sorry,
totally.
Psaki.
No, I think that Jen Psaki thought that that the taxation will be met with an air of patriotism or something like that. So don't price gouge on your patriotic duty of paying more taxes. So for me, that is not even an argument that's interesting. It's like, I think Bitcoin fixes this, and I don't know how long it will take, if we'll ever see it happen. But I really enjoy the older millennial 28, 29-year-olds who are working their asses off, building infrastructure, getting shit set up in El Salvador. All right, if we can get one country to agree, well, we'll take El Salvador. Who cares?
Right.
Whatever. You've got to appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I do. It's probably the biggest white pill that's out there right now, or the most hopeful. I'm also a Bitcoin guy, so I think that gives us some hope that if I'm correct, that if Austrian economics is correct, that you can't print into oblivion and not have an issue, then we have a plan B. And if you're aware of that, then you can kind of adopt it early. I wanted to ask, what is your thesis? Obviously, you've covered a lot of really sinister, dark stuff over the past couple of years. I think I probably have a decent idea, but who is running this controlled demolition of liberty across the globe? Is it the Schwab and WEF people? Is it the Illuminati? Like, do you have an opinion as to, or is it all of them working in tandem? Is it totally random? What do you think?
Wow. I think there's always, even if I could say, oh yeah, this is obviously the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, which may be to a degree extremely true.
Right.
Then I, just for my own sanity, have to say, well, who do they answer to? And before you know it, I'm on flat Earth land, and silicon trees and the upside down world and firmament first. So I'm very careful with that. What I do see playing out, and by the way, I love exploring all of those ideas too. What I see is that big groups are just kind of working together, and it feels organic. I don't think there's necessarily a meeting that was had between the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare industry, which is really banking, because it's really just about insurance and pay and money flow, and politicians, because in fact they've been in bed together for decades and decades, and we really didn't pay attention. My generation wasn't really paying attention to who was running for the school board. It's like, I don't know. And, before you know it, some idiot slipped in. Now, how did they get in? Well, they come from universities. And this, I think we can attribute to money, is the big foundations who say, okay, here's an endowment. We're going to give you $100 million, but you can only spend it on lessons that are of social equity, et cetera, et cetera. So when you have that happening, and I think we do have a generation that is completely sees the world, they're over-socialized and under-informed, and the over-socialized is a heavy emphasis, because that's what they're getting in the universities. And so they come out and they're so, again, over-socialized, which means you have to be so careful, don't rub anyone the wrong way, that when Wall Street sees this programming, which you can put under the heading of environment or social, so environmental, social, let's add a G for governance. So now all of a sudden you have an up-and-coming generation who have been taught, yet you really should only invest in things that are good. And that means they have to have an ESG rating, which is completely made up by Wall Street. It's completely arbitrary. They created their own little board, their own foundations, their own determinations, their own formulas for what is good economic social governance. And you're not investable if not. So now you have these groups playing off of each other. So it's more of a dance that people are involved in. Pharma wants to make a lot of money, but so does the healthcare insurance industry. There was a lot of money being whipped up. There was lots of money for just labeling someone COVID. There was money flowing everywhere, and that is also the American way. I think I'm certainly, as an American, I'm honest enough to say that's what we do, and it sucks, and we need to change that behavior. But it's happening everywhere. I mean, I've lived in other countries, I know people, and so this is the same. When you bring in the World Economic Forum, that's really the money people with the Schwab, who just, I mean, if he looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, the guy's a freaking Nazi. Look at him, he's scary. So. And I read his book. I read his Great Reset. That's a group of people who realize that the system has run out, that they can't really do it any other way. We need to create whole new industries, whether they're good for us or not. And they settled on climate change, and they settled on solar and wind and other things. And to get us there, they will go to any ends of the earth. So they will pull plugs on power. They will pull plugs on supply chains. They will pull mainly coal. They will pull plug on anything to build the narrative that, oh my God, if we don't do this, we're all going to die. And the one that just blows me away, although I predicted this was a likelihood, is the vaccination mandates and proving it.
Yes. And
I really don't believe the United States is 75% fully vaccinated. I don't buy it anymore. Ooh, I'd use the Dvorak. I really don't think that that's true. I think they've been lying to us. And the reason I say this is now I look, everyone's real quiet about this, what's happening with Southwest Airlines with the Pilots Association. So this is a sick out. This is basically a wild strike, which is very problematic for their, because they're quasi-government companies. But this is where it comes down to the wire. This is who we are as people, that we still have some kind of borders, and pilots are typically a really supportive group. So I think that either a whole bunch of vaccinated pilots are supporting these guys, or saying, oh, don't worry, it's 80% fully vaccinated anyway. I don't believe it. I think they're lying. I think there's far fewer people fully vaccinated.
I think you're right. And if I've been following this story for 48 hours now, I was one of the first people that got the screenshot of a text saying that Jacksonville TSA, or not TSA, but air traffic control, had walked off or called in sick. And I think that what's interesting is today I saw some screenshots of additional text saying that, many of these pilots are former military. They are basically responding because they understand that they're going to come for them first and then all of us next. And they are still taking their declaration that they will defend the American people from enemies, foreign and domestic, to this job as a pilot.
I would totally believe that. But I'll tell you, I know plenty of pilots, also Southwest Airlines pilots, who are like that, and they've not been in the military because they're Americans.
Well, that's beautiful.
And they're like, no. And I said from day one, hey man, when I'm not a big airplane pilot, but I've been a helicopter pilot and fixed wing pilot for 15 years, maybe going on 20. And the joke was not just a joke, but when you're flying, you got your pilot, your first officer, you don't have the same meal. Why? Well, it's fucking obvious. Because the people might get sick from the fish. Well, good, I had the shitty ass pasta.
Right.
So if you have everybody vaccinated, and it's still experimental enough to not know the long-term effects. I mean, every single time I read about something happening with aviation or with a train derailment or a sub crash, I'm like, man, I hope it wasn't someone keeling over. I don't know. So that's
an interesting point. I actually have I have a Red Book submission, which I have been wanting to give you forever. Okay. The fact that I get to do one of these. And I came up with it just yesterday, and it's kind of going viral on Twitter right now. I said that Biden will push the DOJ to criminalize walkouts from employees at vitally necessary industries under the guise of national security. What do you think about that one?
Well, I think that's already true for any corporation that falls under the Railway Act. Which is the airlines? Yes, they do.
Oh, they do. Oh, yeah. Wow. Then just check it off. It's already in the book.
Pretty much. But what you're saying is an extension, and that would be very much in line with the marketing communications they've used consistently by saying, you are an essential business. So it could be that walking out of an essential business, which could have nothing to do with the Railway Act. But the cool thing that's happening right now is, as far as I know, there is no written mandate that corporations have to do this.
Right.
If you are a government organization or a contractor, which is a large group, no doubt, yes, that's been mandated because you're a government. Mm-hmm. But as far as I know, there's no OSHA ruling yet. Nothing has been written. There's certainly no executive order that says that companies with 100 employees or more have to mandate vaccination. That does not exist yet, as far as I know. So this is even crazier and very reminiscent of, I'm sure you remember me talking about this, in The Garden of Beasts, which is a book about a family growing up, a diplomatic family in Germany just before the outbreak of World War II, and how they saw people conforming, just doing my job, just following orders. It's good for everybody. We're doing it for the old people. We're doing it for the healthcare. We're doing it, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it reminds me of Solzhenitsyn's warnings in the Gulag Archipelago that, had we just acted sooner, we could likely have defeated this thing before it got to a point of absolute despair. And I'm hopeful that that's what these walkouts and these sickouts are, is that people are realizing if we don't take a stand at some point, I've been screaming for months now, do not comply. But once the vaccine mandate came out, I really put every ounce of my soul into declaring I will not ever comply with this, because it is a red line that we will never recover from. I really believe that. Do you view it as seriously?
Yes, I do. I think this has been the plan all forever. That's because absolute power corrupts absolutely, and they would be those in power. Certainly, those who've been there in power longer. They'd love nothing more to have people. They live on a different plane. They don't feel the same way you and I do. I've been around enough politicians. It's like celebrities. When you're super, super, super famous, you live on a different plane. Things happen like a different level.
Right.
You literally are not in touch with other groups, and it's what it is. But you can learn. You can go in and out from that. It's not that hard to do. Mm-hmm. But the idea of a digital ID that is under control of the government and not Silicon Valley is extremely appealing to the government. They really, 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 really want their hands on the data. They want to have all the cool shit. A lot of those people are coming into government, and it's great. It's much easier to control. And I don't even think people realize how evil it really is. It's where they're in a mass hypnosis state, which has been induced by this incredible fear that has been ginned up. But the crazy thing is, and we're going to get there eventually, I see it at least, I'm all for regulating Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Regulate the hell out of them as much as possible. Please, please, please. Because I've seen the exodus. I've seen every single time people go somewhere else. AOL. Okay, this is I've told the story, but I registered MTV.com when I was at MTV, 1993, 92, I don't remember. And I was using it. And I went to him and said, is it okay if I do this? It's MTV.com. I'm just running a little serve myself, not charging any money, but I can get emails. I can put up a little web. They didn't know what a website was. And I said, whatever. Don't worry about you and your internet. We've got the AOL keyword. We have nothing to fear. So You know, and it was like, it was a done deal. Like, well, shut up, Curry, you're dumb. Later, of course, they sued me for it, which was a whole nother story.
Doesn't surprise me.
Well, the lawsuit between MTV Networks and Mr. Curry has been settled out of court, and neither party has any further comment.
That's fair.
We worked it out.
I wanted to ask you real quick. Did you ever get clarity from Joe Rogan on how Osterholm became the medical professional that was on his show so early on? Because that's stunning to me.
I forgot to ask. I will. Next time I see him, I'll ask. I did talk to him. I remember the last time I was there saying, man, that guy really kicked it off. And I remember Joe going, yeah, what the fuck? But I forgot to ask how he weaseled his way in. But I will. I'm afraid to ask because, you know, that's a booking thing, and I don't want to fuck with the booking process. I got to keep getting booked.
Of course. No, I don't jeopardize anything for my own curiosity, but that is a really intriguing question because that guy was such an over-the-top fearmonger about all this stuff, and the fact that he was on such an enormous platform so early on, kind of out of nowhere, like no one really knew who he was, at least in my world.
No, I agree. So, I think that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Because he was there, and he was there the same day I was, which was even weirder. That was March 2020. He was, as I was leaving, he was about to do the show with Joe, and I met him. And I'm like, hey,
wow, like, I forgot about that.
And I'd know, and then, you know, it wasn't. This was a few days before. It was. I remember people were wearing masks at the airport, and I remember specifically because I landed at LAX, and people were wearing Gucci and, you know, Louis Vuitton masks. Like, okay, I'm in LA.
So or Miami. I've learned that exists.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah. But those are knockoffs.
Yeah. Good point. So prior to COVID, it was obvious that tensions in the US were kind of escalating. Do you attribute that to a culmination of things like the Patriot Act, the War on Terror, a bunch of things, or is there something that stands out above the pile that makes you go, this is why our culture, or, you know, basically we stopped congealing as a nation?
I think that we were in trouble for quite a while already, and it was simmering under. And President Trump brought or gave everyone license to speak, which was, you know, I grew up in America. We don't talk about religion and politics because I want to hang out with you. Right. And that's how I grew up. And you really didn't do that. You know, it's like, that guy, you know, he does these things, this or whatever. But I like him. We'll go play ball, have a cookout, etc. I can work with him. We were always very courteous. And in fact, I think Americans in general were super courteous. Like, hey, you know, I don't want to offend you, man. I just want you to have your life and do whatever you want to do. And I'll do my thing and everybody's fine. And it's that thing that we are as Americans that has been played against us. So, and in the worst possible way, by playing a racism tactic. And this is what's been very destructive. Now, where this comes from, that's definitely evil insertion because it's happening everywhere around the world. In the Netherlands, they started it 5, 6, 7 years ago with the Black Pete's, with St. Nicholas, and their whole angle was, well, you guys, you know, you were colonialists, and you all the people from Suriname reparations. I mean, does it ring a bell? So, yes. And it all came from United Nations, and really, I think people who are educated in a certain manner with revisionist history, not saying one version of history is better than the other, but revisionist without anyone else really knowing it. And all of a sudden you wake up, and then what's being taught in schools, now we see people who are educated in our universities teaching middle school, and it's America sucks. Yep. And we're no good. And so that's where it comes from. But as I alluded to earlier, go back up the chain, it comes from the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie, all of these groups who say, all right, you know, let's get some money into the system, and let's give you some education, but it has to be social justice, climate, environment, equity, right. You know, go on. So that, I think that caught us by surprise. Again, it's not like we didn't know it, but all of a sudden we all had to look at our own asshole during this pandemic. As Americans, really had to look at our own asshole. Right. And it was not pretty. because holy shit, what did we do? Can I curse on your show? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, yeah, please.
Doing it. Like, what did we do? Just like I said, I wasn't paying attention to the idiots who wanted to run for school board. I was out changing the world, I thought, doing my own thing. I wasn't paying attention to that. Didn't really. Now, I did not. I did 3 months of college. My daughter never felt like it. I do have 2 stepdaughters. They're fucking disappointed, you know. And so now they're like 20. The oldest is 26. So here's their life. Born while we were already in the Gulf War, the first one. Then 9/11. Then now these kids are 8, 9 years old. That's traumatic. Then we invaded the wrong country. Okay, whatever.
6 of them.
Yeah. You know, and then these kids saw older siblings leaving, going off to war. You know, the imagery at the same time, rise of the internet, the smartphone, so inundated with a lot of negative stuff. There's a whole bunch of other influences in that regard. But then we get the big financial crisis, and don't worry, we're going to fix everything, and just go to school, get your degree, and people come out of school and they're getting paid $13 an hour. They've got $100,000 of debt, and they're being told they're going to die in 10 years.
Yep.
So what did we expect?
And then you lock them in their house for 18 months. Sounds like a fucking great plan. I mean, this is what makes me think that it's more orchestrated, because like you go back to the Ford Foundation and all these big boys that are funding the education, right? And it seems to me that you only do that if either A, you're a true believer, which they might be, or B, you do it because it benefits you. And I think that if you're going to do it because it benefits you, you're doing it to divide the nation, to divide the people, so that you can then be basically a more powerful source that sits above the disarray. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there, but that's that.
I have a thought.
Go for it.
And it's the thought that is based on what all these groups always come back to. Too many people. Mm-hmm. All the elite groups, their basic tenet is there's too many people.
Yep.
And either we have to kill a lot of people, which worked pretty well with the world wars, or we have to control them some other way. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is otherwise they will mess it up and we'll lose our money and they'll come for our heads. Mm. And I think it's that simple. And then there's a lot of foot soldiers and so George Soros, perfect example. That's a foot soldier. Bill Gates is a foot soldier. Mm-hmm. Jamie Dimon is a foot soldier, and these are all foot soldiers, and they're all in the clubs, and they're all on the boards, and they're all in the big NGOs, and so yeah, I think you're right that there's coordination at that level. So, for instance, Afghanistan, this worldwide, all of a sudden, there's refugees in every single country in the world, not just America. I mean, there's the Netherlands, there's only 17 million people in this country. It's smaller than Rhode Island. It used to be 14 until they opened the floodgates for the, where'd they come from? Mainly from, not from Morocco, but from Morocco. Mm-hmm. But like the hills of Morocco. So millions of people streamed in and now living there, and it's been ghettoized, and the whole thing sucks. And now it's like, well, we'll bring in some Afghans. Well, how many? Well, maybe 40,000. But shut up. This is not about absolute numbers. This is about humanity.
Right.
So they don't even know how many people are going to be brought in and why. And when I hear the IRC, Dvorak played some clips from that, the International Rescue Corporation, I think it's called, an NGO, which is filled with douchebags and who get paid for every single person they rescue. They're out looking for interpreters, people who speak multiple Afghan dialects to communicate with these refugees. What? I thought that these were the interpreters we were bringing back. What the heck? This is lies. This is lies. So that's coordinated. Why? I don't know. Because they got to keep the money flowing, because it's cheap labor, because it's Democratic voters. I think everybody has their own, their own reasons for it. But that's like the border. The border. I've helped people get legal here, Mexicans, now full Americans or green card holders. And I say, well, how'd that work? And you came here 20, 25 years ago. Yeah, but then there were companies down at the border with vans like, hey, you want to come work? Come over here. And they just walked and got in the van and worked, and it was fine because it was not, it was different. And it was just come on over and hang out. And so, it wasn't like the borders were locked down then. And it was completely to behoove the mainly, I would say, California fruit pickers and that kind of stuff. But, it's like, who are we kidding? So we have to fix a lot of things. And I think that what's good now is let's get it all out there. Let's show everything. Let's see all of the horrible, horrible stuff. And we're seeing a lot of it. We're seeing the corruption. We're seeing, oh, guess what? Those guys at the Federal Reserve, they were buying right alongside with the shit they were buying with our money. Okay, corrupt. We're seeing the influence of China in our education system, in our healthcare system. We have serious questions about what they were doing and what were we doing with them. And wait a minute, who was really paying for everything? Mm-hmm. So the Americans, I put a lot of faith in the American people. They're not stupid. We may be a little slow, but we're figuring it out. We're figuring out what's really going on. And then, my advice is, I really love the kids who are trying to blow it all up and put Bitcoin in place. And they may actually get help from, some unsuspected sources. I mean, George Soros may be trying to kill the dollar the way he killed the pound. And he may see Bitcoin as his hedge. I mean, I don't know. That could happen too. But at least that would be more fair. There'd be more people to play in the game.
That's true, but man, I really hope Soros doesn't make another $1 billion off of Bitcoin. I wanted to bring up, as you were mentioning, how they're talking about having refugees come in under humanitarian excuses. Well, it's pretty ironic that the reason that they're refugees is because of our humanitarian bombs that we dropped on them. I mean, that you weren't really concerned about humanitarianism back for the past 20 years as we made these people's lives hell. But then also, so once again, they're using our principles against us. They use the humanitarian principle when in fact it's just about power and money, as it usually is. But then also the latest conundrum in the libertarian sphere has been that they basically are now using the libertarian belief in private property rights to get us to allow for employers to mandate vaccination. Do you see that similarly, that the government, these politicians, they don't value private property rights. They just locked us in our houses for 18 months. They couldn't let you open your business. They didn't allow us to foreclose or evict tenants. They don't value property rights at all. But all of a sudden, these Democrat politicians come out and say, well, what about private property rights? You have to allow the business to mandate this. I mean, it's just so manipulative. And I feel like people aren't seeing through it, that they use our principles against us to control us. And I don't know how you deal with it without losing your principles yourself, but I just hope people are starting to wake up to that fact.
Well, I really am a big fan of Professor Matthias de Smet, who has explained quite eloquently how we are in what he calls a mass formation event or mass hysteria. And he's a professor in psychology with a whole nother master's in statistics, which is how he came to see that something was wrong with the numbers they were showing us. And he says, all the elements we needed for mass hysteria were there, and this hypnosis, this formation, this hypnosis that people are under, he says, is equal to medical hypnosis that they use before surgery. You can cut into somebody and they won't even feel it, and This is because of the combination of going into it not being happy. Cannot say that people were happy in 2019. There was a lot of stress and unhappiness and an election and bull crap going on. And a lot of people take antidepressants with who knows ultimately what those things do long term. Sure. We don't really know, SSRIs. And so then you throw people into solitude. This is another this is a big flag on the hypnosis scale. Then you give everybody, while they're in solitude, an immediate reasons to be completely connected, which you do with a mask. And what's fun about this is that the so-called leaders, they're also in the hypnotic state, and they actually get more narrow-minded and focused and go completely apeshit on anything like OCD to the max on anything. That's where you get 2 masks, 3 masks. Now, is part of that a fealty test? Maybe that's Dvorak's concept that, hey, they're testing us out. Well, yeah, of course they are. You know, I don't know if that was the original intent. And I think people start out by really meaning well, but when you can't see the obvious fallacy of my body, my choice, where, yeah, it applies to a woman who wants an abortion, but it doesn't apply to a woman who doesn't want a mandatory vaccination.
Right.
You know, so, you know, that means that people are not thinking rationally. So, and of course, I'm always interested. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Professor. Now, how do we get out of it? And he says, the only way is you cannot stop talking. You have to keep speaking your truth. Mockery is really helpful. Right. Mockery is, you know, memes, all this stuff. Let's go, Brandon is, I'm fucking love it. Let's go, Brandon is the best. By the way, let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
So these things have to continue. And, you know, I agree with you on what you're saying, but they didn't lock us down. We let ourselves be locked down. We Fair let point. It happen. We let it happen. And, you know, I live in a small town now in Texas Hill Country, and they've got a little, city council, and they recently passed an ordinance or whatever it's called. We are now a sanctuary city for small business. Never again will the federal government shut down a business in our town.
Oh,
ever again.
Enormous. That's awesome.
Wow. Or the state government. We will fight against the state.
Wow. That is huge.
Sure. Now, hopefully that won't happen, but yeah.
No. I mean, yeah, I'm saying wow is in a good way. I'm thrilled. Yeah. I mean, this is the type
that's what it takes, but it's all local now. So we've got to be thinking local, change your local. That's why I love the school board meetings.
Me too.
These are important.
Which is exactly why they're trying to label them terrorists, because they realize that it's important too.
Yeah. And that just may be more posturing than anything, but who knows? It doesn't matter. They said it. It sucks. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like, these people are dangerous. Yeah, sure.
I mean, they list PTA moms as terrorists. They're listing libertarians as terrorists.
Well, I'm sure you saw the Southwest Airlines, you know, there's a post of someone saying, oh, you know, it's like you do this, then you really move to, you're now a domestic terrorist.
Yeah, that was the Palmer report. Yep.
The Palmer report, right. So
what a scumbag.
Yeah. So
well, I was gonna say we can lighten this up a little bit. I want to know who is John C. Dvorak your handler or are you his?
No, we have our own handlers. No. He's not very good at it if he's trying to handle me.
I was gonna say I don't think anybody can handle you. How's your wife handle it?
She's really fantastic. She is an Uber producer. I mean, she goes deep on all. She's always said, like, all day long, check this out. Look at this. Oh my God, look at this. You know, and now we bounce off. She's really a great sounding board. You know, I'll say, okay, let me try and explain this. Tell me what you think. Mm-hmm. So I get to mansplain her, and then she gets to tell me if it's good or not.
I love that.
And I try out all my jokes. I'm the first thing I say. I heard the show? Did you laugh? I want to be a comedy show. That's always been my intent. Just make it more fun.
Well, yeah, that actually leads me perfectly into this. First, I wanted to commend you for covering such dark topics, but managing to maintain levity and a seeming joy about all of this. What keeps you hopeful? I mean, besides Bitcoin, you seem to just be a relatively optimistic person in the face of a lot of really shitty news, and that always amazes me.
I've always been an optimistic guy. Once I learned that women don't want the problem solved right away, I learned that I can always look at any situation in a positive light. I'm always looking for a solution. A problem for me is I'm immediately in problem solving mode. I've had incredibly rich experiences with people throughout my life.
You've had an incredible life, by the way.
I'm trying to think how I can bring this all around. But you know, it's the people in my life who really make me who I am, and that's, you know, not just the people in my direct surroundings, but it's the people I'm talking to all the time, and it's so personal. So I'm not really sharing bad news. I'm sharing personal stuff from people that because that's where the bulk of our information comes from. We have the best we never considered people listeners. You're a producer, the best producers in the business. Everybody has an expertise in something. And once you say, hey, what is it you're really good at? And if that topic comes up, let me know, then you get really, I think, pretty decent information.
You're essentially crowdsourcing in your show. I mean, it is a really powerful thing. I mean, the producer letters that you get are from some of the smartest people in individual industries. It's incredible.
Yeah. I've never underestimated who's listening, and that's always been good. So what is helpful to me is marijuana. that is very useful for me, because when I know, okay, like every day I have to sit down for at least an hour just to go through the emails. And show days themselves, and I'm up at 5:30, so I'm prepping for 6 hours before we actually start. I find it a lot easier to just float through it if a little micro dosage got, I have 2 vapes. This is the party vape, and although I do like the burning the flower myself. Sure. And that has helped me tremendously. But I grew up with that. I grew up in Amsterdam, so that's almost like I'm not much of a drinker. I don't need any of that. I think the marijuana can definitely help you understand or be more open to things, because there's also lots of people who disagree with something we've presented, or there's also a lot of people who are really, really fucking frustrated and take it out on me. Yes. And I'm able to see. I love those notes, by the way. They'll be like, "Yo, bro, why are you so mad?" It's like, let's and I go back and forth, and before you know it, you learn something about somebody. When dog died, and fuck my wife, and then my ex-wife and my kids, and like, okay, now let's talk about what you were saying. And I like people. I like building community around stuff. It's fun. Yeah. It's very rewarding. And I think, because you were talking earlier about will it be remembered for podcasting? I would think more for value as a concept.
Yeah,
because that really. Podcasting 2.0 puts it into a technical form that enables more people to understand it.
Yes.
And Bitcoin has these inherent properties of philanthropy. Mm-hmm. Because, and I can try to explain that, if you hold Bitcoin, you really don't want to spend it. It's like sometimes you have to, like, I got to spend a little Bitcoin, or I got to get some fiat fund coupons, some cuck bucks. I got to do something in the real world where they don't understand me. But in general, I like having it. But it's much tougher to part with. I think that's because that, well, if I don't spend it now, in like a month, it's going to be worth more money. So exactly. I have
it's a deflationary currency. Yeah.
Right. So giving someone some Bitcoin is a humongous gift. Mm-hmm. And it is most likely the gift that keeps on giving if they hold on to that gift. So there's something about Bitcoin in general that works into the psyche, but we have something in our DNA or our whatever, however we've been programmed, that we like doing things for other people when they do something for us. And we're creating a show, a 3-hour thing, and it's basically just an MP3, and you can play it and you can listen to it. And if you're listening to it and you found it valuable because, I don't know, you laughed, you learned something, you had it was a different take. I don't know what it was. It kept your mind off of your dead dog. I don't know if it was valuable, how valuable was it? And what can you do for me? Mm-hmm. And that's all I ask. And by the way, nothing today, no value. It's fine. It's fine. Then it wasn't valuable enough. It's that simple. I can't tell you how valuable this is. And then when I start extrapolating that, I say, well, this is kind of crazy. Silicon Valley has taken away our ability to price things. So my example is, I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's one of the best love songs ever. I love that song. 99 cents determined by Steve Jobs and Apple. I would pay $99 for it every single time, but I'm not even allowed to think that way. So when you tell people, please think in those terms, and in order to make this work, because the budgets and the way podcasting has just turned out to be, and just the way audiences are now completely distributed, it's no one's going to be the king of all media anymore. You can't hire producers and editors, so you have to do that stuff yourself. but I also can't do enough to deliver the output we do. So I need you to give me one of three things: time, talent, or treasure. Preferably all three if you got them.
Right.
But that's it. And if we're lacking on the time, if people aren't putting it, like I said, where's all my submariner guys? We have a damn sub that's crashed. I know 4 of you at least have been on subs for 20 years. Where's my info?
Right.
You know? Or hello, Southwest. Now it turns out the pilot guys, certainly the Southwest airline guys, they can't talk about it legally, and they could get in some real problem. And so I understand why that's all quiet. But also talent. You know, we have artists do artwork, compete with each other for every single show, and we give real, honest feedback.
Yeah,
you know, we're saying, hey, this sucks, or this was great, or this didn't make the cut. And then, of course, if we're light on money, all we spend it on is rent, or we have mortgages. Luckily, we spend it on our families. We don't really go anywhere. You know, we don't really do much with it. I'm not sitting on the pile of cash. But we'll say, hey, we need more money, so send more of that. Otherwise, we can't bring you the same value. And if people won't do it, then it ends, and that's what makes it so cool. It's like. Yep. You know, it's like, will this ever end? No, I don't. One of us will die. You know, that's the end. That's the ultimate exit strategy.
Well, you just answered my final question. I
think it is. I think that has to be the exit strategy. And we talked about it recently. I said, I think that's it. You know, then the show has to end. You can't do No Agenda with somebody else. You can't do it with someone instead of me. You can't do it with someone instead of John. It just wouldn't be right. But that's not to say that the community
may long live both Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak, because I need another 25, 30 years out of you guys, please.
Oh, man, can you imagine me still doing like John going, hit it?
It'd be incredible. Come on.
And the Zephyr will be 800 cars long. He'll be counting there, like the Zephyr, because you know by then it'll.
Well, the Zephyr by then will be on it, and it'll be headed to San Quentin or something.
That's right. It'll be like Snowpiercer. We'll actually be on the Zephyr, and we can't stop, or we all die. No, but this has been the most just phenomenal time of my life, professionally. Also personally, I'm certainly in a real good place. I got real good people around me, but also just all the hundreds of thousands of people who participate in our podcast, but in the whole scene in general. So how did I get here? You know, we got some No Agenda people. They're in the No Agenda tribe. They cross over into the Liberty Lockdown tribe. Right. We got people connecting us. You got no booker. I don't have an agent. You know, we had our people. Our people are out there, Manny talking to Manny. And it's like, hey, let's get these guys together. And it happens. And I think this is what people need to recognize and maybe study a little bit. Mainstream is broken. Hollywood is broken. They can't. And the lockdowns did it. That finalized it. So, and I just look at ratings. I mean, I know how television and radio works, and it's done. They're toast. They can't. I mean, the first season opener for SNL wasn't bad. I watched it. Owen Wilson, pretty good. 50% lower than last season. So they bring in the big guns. Kim Kardashian. I gotta say, with Halsey, good show. I liked it. Now, I watched it on Hulu last night. I can't watch that shit Saturday night with commercials. Mm-hmm. You see, their model is broken. People are so spoiled now. And the same will go for podcasts. You know, you could put your commercials at the front of the podcast. That's fine. Everyone skips it. Everybody knows it. I guess the advertisers still works somehow because they're putting up with it. And I'm not against advertising, but it just doesn't seem an efficient way to do it.
Sure.
So the numbers are not there. So what did they get? 3 million, 4 million people. Kardashian even made a joke. She said, I got 50 million people on Instagram, so it's great to be here at your little TV show where you get, what, 10 million? That's what she said. And it was a third of that, what made it even worse. Olympics, total mess. Every single award show, nothing. The Hollywood has no influence. Our influencers are influencing us. Now, there's other problems with that because, I mean, I think TikTok, that has taken kids who used to listen to Top 40 radio and record the songs, you know, with the tape deck, and I want to get the song without the DJ talking over the intro. It has put that it's like now it's Top 40 radio When the song's not even 3 minutes long. Now they're 30 seconds, and you can do it too, and you can do the dance. And then he's my dog, and my fucking baby's cute, and I love the cake. And it's like, and it goes with the drugs the kids are on. Pay attention to this. The 60s, LSD. We had Sgt. Pepper's. We had the whole hippie movement. Then we got into, we got kind of in the weed, speed. We got disco. Then we kind of got hardcore with really weird drugs with punk, then cocaine, heroin. And now we've kind of, when you look at techno and house and raves, that's MDMA and Molly. And Ritalin. Same thing. This TikTok is the fucking Ritalin TV. That's exactly what it is. Vyvanse, Ritalin. These kids are jacked on meth, and it's great. And it's great. And so these things go in tandem. That's seriously, listen to hip hop radio. Hip hop radio, man, it's way other drugs, shit I haven't even heard of, like gin and juice and all this stuff. They're doing cough syrup, and it's like crazy ass meth drinks. Right. The hip hoppers, man, and massive blunts. So that's their culture. That's the hip hop culture with more with weed, but also some heavy ass psychogenics. Right. So pay attention to those things. That goes along with it. It really does. And I think Bitcoin is mushrooms. I think Bitcoiners are mushroom and weed people.
I love that analysis. That is so great. And I happen to be a huge fan of what I will now refer to as old English 40-ounce hip hop. That is, that's the genre. That's the era that I listen to.
40. That's all you need. That's right. That goes back to our days.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. Please, this is the only show that I will say definitively is consistently, significantly better than Liberty Lockdown. If you are not a No Agenda subscriber, supporter, patron, producer, you are making a huge fucking mistake. God bless Adam Curry. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And let's keep this going, man. Let's catch up in a couple of months again. See where we're at.
Oh, you're the man. I really appreciate it. Well, isn't this novel? The way you can support this show just changed because of the guest I just had. He set me up on Podcasting 2.0, so you can now support this show with Bitcoin if you see fit. Along the lines of what we discussed with Adam, the value for value model. If you find value in this show, I would encourage you to support creators that you feel give you value. And if I'm one of those, great. If I'm not, I still encourage you the same to go out and support the independent creators that are making a product that you appreciate, that tells the truth, that is honest, that is actually giving you kind of a behind the scenes explanation to what's going on in the world. If you don't want to support me, go support No Agenda. But I will include down below a link so that you can now support Liberty Lockdown as well. Also, if you'd rather not just send me money and you want to get something in return, you can go to Teespring. The link is also down below to get a shirt like this with my crazy mug on it. There's other designs. If you don't want my face, that's fine too. I won't take it personally. And lastly, if you want to support the show on a monthly basis, but not via Bitcoin, you can go to libertylockdown.locals.com and become a supporting member of our group there. I will be doing exclusive content over there every probably couple times a month, including an AMA. So you can, talk to me directly and I will answer any and all of your questions. This week we have up Julia Song, Josh Denny, and the list goes on and on. Dave Rubin, Zuby, a whole bunch of other people coming up. It's going to be wild. Stay tuned. Big shout out to everybody that's been with me since Jump Street. Appreciate y'all. Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. Please scan your barcode. Your liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where did it come from and where did it go? It requires a fight, not tweeting from your phone. Don't need a king, get him off the fucking throne. If you're riding with the thought, you've always got a home. The virus you're scared of will come and it'll go. The government knows, just don't get treated like a hoe. Like Nico and Shane, you're probably wondering what's happening. Scared Hollywood left these lyrical feppinin'. A typo with Luke might bring them nooses. We all bite the bullet, I'm the king of the gooses. Freckles and Brit didn't know I could spit. Knew I was a patriot, but now I'm the shit.
Peter Quinones, invite me on. Which podcaster sends custom songs? Part of the problem? Nah, I stand with the people. Dave showed the way, but I am unequal. Lions of Liberty, now hear me roar. Beat running up, but I got a bit more. Robbie the Fire, always running his mouth, but I made him a sandwich, now I'm man of the house. The malice for Nick, but you're welcome to quit. I went over BLM with the fire I spit. Friends against government just call us fags. Copied the Cairo, put mummies in the bag. Liable opinions get thrown on the ground. Silky smooth Tom was the only sound. Getting so hot must be Air July. Screaming in the mic, a Ripper 59. Miles to ratio that black guns matter. Now all these lefties got crazy small bladders. None of us wanted war, but we're ready. You know I be bopping and rock steady. Liberty lockdown, please scan your barcode. Your liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where did it come from and where did it go? It requires a fight, not tweeting from your phone. Don't need a king, get him off the fucking throne. If you're riding with the thought, you've always got a home. The virus you're scared of will come and it'll go. The government knows, just don't get treated like a hoe.